As most of us know by now, there are going to be some significant changes occurring affecting the Catholics of this local area, in particular here in Falmouth. If you're just returning from your winter homes or you're a guest this weekend here in our parish, the three Catholic parishes here at St. Anthony's, in downtown St. Patrick's, and in North Falmouth, St. Elizabeth Seton, are joining together to form a collaborative. It's a model of ministry, of a close working together, one parish with the other, to strengthen the presence of the Catholic Church in this area. As it was announced last week, I've been appointed pastor of all three parishes and have been tasked by the bishop to implement a strategic plan for this collaborative. Along with the 5 deacons that are in the 3 parishes and a solid group of dedicated lay men and women who have made up our new pastoral council, not to mention the hundreds of parishioners who have gathered in the fall for a number of meetings, we are moving forward. And I will be joined by a yet-to-be-announced assistant, another priest, to help me in particular with the 3 parishes. Change is oftentimes difficult and unsettling for many of us as we become used to our routines, our schedules, our familiar ways of doing things, even doing church. This new model will mean change for us all. For me personally, this is a major change in my life as a priest. I've been a pastor of parishes now close for 20 years. 3 different parishes I've been pastor, but never 3 parishes at the same time. I went to the doctor on Friday, half expecting him to tell me that something is wrong. And he did. He said, "Father Steve, what's going on?" "Your blood pressure, your weight, your cholesterol numbers. Well, they're the best I've seen in years for you. The best." I said, "What?" He said, "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." I thought about that question. What am I doing? And I guess I could sum it up with one word: trust. Because in spite of all this that's been going on now for well over a year, there's been a deep sense of trust that I've had, that God is in control and everything's going to be okay. It reminds me of a story, and I think I've told you before, about St. Pope John the 23rd. He was the Pope who inaugurated the Second Vatican Council in the early 1960s. At that time, a great change that was happening in the Catholic Church, probably one of the greatest changes in years. The story's told that after very long days of discussions and debates that are occurring in the council, the Pope, at the end of the day, and saying his prayers, would kneel down before his bed and utter this simple prayer: "Well, God, it's your church. I'm going to bed." Friends, that's a prayer of a man who trusts in God. Trust that God is in charge, that God is dwelling among his people, that God would be with him and be with the church he loves. That it is God who will be making new things happen. Today's second reading that we just heard from is from the book of Revelation. It's the last book in the Bible, in the New Testament, and it's packed with a lot of symbolic language. And it stirs up, if you read it as a whole, great emotions and motivation for people. It was written at a time that the early Christian church faced a lot of change, a lot of opposition, and rejection. And yet the message of Revelation in the midst of all this is a hopeful message. It's a message filled with great optimism. St. John, the author, speaks about a new Jerusalem where God dwells in its midst, wiping away all tears and fears, pain and suffering. In other words, a place where God is firmly in control. He speaks using an image of the Lamb of God, who sits on the throne and leads this new Jerusalem. The Lamb who has won victory. One of the most beautiful aspects of our recent renovations, and those of you who are guests, we just underwent a major renovation here. One of the most recent and most beautiful aspects is something that most of you don't even see. And it's on the back wall in the choir loft. It's a beautiful stained glass window that was there. It used to be there, but then it was moved, and we put it back there. But that window has that symbolic image, the Lamb holding the victor's flag. And it's really tremendously moving for me when I'm standing at this altar, and just before communion I hold up the Eucharist and I say, "Behold the Lamb of God, behold him." And as I'm looking at that Eucharist now, that host in my hand, I'm looking beyond it to the window with that beautiful image of the Lamb holding the victor's staff. My hope is renewed in symbol and in the real presence of Christ here. Christ has won for us the victory. Remember, that's why we lit this candle. He makes all things new. Now, while this is, yes, a major change for me and for our local church, I know that for many of you, you're dealing with things far more significant than what time the Mass is going to be and where it's going to be. You are dealing with changes that are affecting right now so many of your families, your health, your places of work. And a lot of these changes, well, they can be unsettling and stressful. I was talking to a high school senior a couple of days ago, and that anxiousness, that where am I going to be in a year from now? What is it going to be like? Those are real moments of anxiety, change. It's not easy. Well, perhaps God is inviting us through these many changes in our life to enter more fully into his paschal mystery, the mystery of Christ's life, death, and resurrection, and how you and I are called to be part of that mystery. The mystery is Christ's life, death, resurrection. The mystery of life through death, of resurrection through the cross, Christ's redeeming path of renewal and rebirth. Whatever you might be dealing with personally, these are the life moments when we're asked to believe that God is in control and to trust that he will make all things new in us. And embracing that image, then we become people who are filled with hope and optimism. A couple of weeks ago, when the three parishes came together and we rented out a movie theater to see a movie heralding the values of our faith, and we had to turn people away because we filled it to capacity, I was optimistic, because when we work together, so much more can be accomplished. When for the past 8 years or so, and our 3 parishes have been bringing the confirmation classes together for the sacrament, the celebration of the sacrament. Now that it's just commonplace that we do that every year, I'm really optimistic about our future for our youth. As I sit in the rectory each month around a table of 15 men and women representing the 3 parishes, our new pastoral council, working together for the good of the parishes, for the good of the church of Falmouth, I'm very optimistic. Now, this optimism does not come because the bishop has all the answers, because he doesn't. Not because I have all the answers, because I don't. Not because our pastoral plan is in place and everything is perfect. It isn't. But my optimism is because I trust that God is in control. That Christ, the Lamb of God, is victorious. That's what Easter is all about. That's why we're here. And to all of you who might be burdened or anxious or unsettled by changes in your life, I pray that your faith may be strengthened right now at this table, so that you will turn to trust in God, who desires to make all things new in our lives. So, tonight, I think I'm going to take the sentiments of St. Pope John the 23rd and make them my own. Well, God, it is your church. I'm going to bed.